Well, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who took the time to watch my Christmas videos that I put up. I know it's been about a week or so since I put up a video, and I took a little break, but I'm getting back into it, and I just wanted to say thanks to everyone again, and I appreciate you all for coming here to watch and listen to my stories. I wanted to quickly respond to a comment that someone posted about a story that I did a while back on Dennis Martin in the Great Smoky Mountains, who was a little boy who went missing many, many years ago. And this person wondered if maybe at some point through the years, like people that work within the park might have come across his remains but kept quiet about it to not create a scandal, or maybe to keep the mystery going, and it does draw people to the Smoky Mountains. I'm not really sure about that. I think that if they had come across his remains, they probably would have gone public with that to put to rest this mystery of what actually happened to the child. I don't believe that this was any kind of an abduction, and I don't buy into this theories about feral people or, mystery type outer space and that type of thing, Bigfoot or any of that. I believe that this child became lost during a heavy rainstorm, probably tried to find cover somewhere, and probably came to his death through the hypothermia and maybe washed away in the water, or maybe became covered by debris, and at some point over the years his remains probably just became impacted down into the ground. And I know that that's not the mystery that everyone wants to think about, but that's how I feel about it. But I want to do a couple of quick little stories here. I don't have much information on these people, but I just wanted to bring their names up. These were some cases that came up in my news feed. This was Anquinette Williams, also known as Twinkles. She's been missing in the Memphis, Tennessee area. She's described as a caring and loving individual, but she is easily influenced according to her family. Her family has not heard from her, and there have been no communication through social media or anything like that. She was last seen in Memphis, Tennessee on October the 24th, 2024. She is a black female and described as 5'4" and 135 pounds. And I will do a follow-up on her. I'm going to follow her story. I'm going to look for more information on her. I wanted to do another one on this man real quick. Richard Randolph Barnett. He's been missing since January the 16th, 2023 from Bristol, Virginia. He was 58 years old, 5'7", 165 pounds. He's a white male, and he has brown hair and brown eyes, and in the photographs of him, in some of the photographs, he has a white beard, graying type scruffy like beard. He was last seen in Bristol, Virginia, January 16th, 2023. He has never been heard from again, and there are no details available. He told his family that he was traveling with another man to West Virginia to do some mason work, and he has never been heard from again. And once again, I am going to look into his story and see if I can find anything to go on. I'm getting ready to bring to you all a story some of you may have heard about. This is about a woman who was murdered in Kentucky. Jennifer Bailey enjoyed running, and twice a week she would go to Pine Mountain State Resort Park in Pineville, Kentucky. And on the morning of Thursday, August 16th, 1990, the 21-year-old drove her mother's Mercury Cougar to Pine Mountain and parked near one of the park's popular running trails. This was at around 11 a.m. Now, she was very familiar with these trails, as she did this quite a lot, at least twice a week. and as she usually did, she put her wallet and her car keys under the front seat. She left the car unlocked and set off on her run, but she never made it back to the car that day. Jennifer failed to return to her home in Greasy Creek, Kentucky. Her parents, Elbert and Janice Bailey, knew that something was wrong. Jennifer last spoke to her mother earlier that morning. She said that she had run some errands and told her mother that she was going to stop by the park and go for a run. Her mother never heard from her again. Her mother, Janice, was recovering from surgery, and Jennifer planned to pick up a prescription for her at the local pharmacy. She was also going to stop by and get her mother some soda and bring it to her. Jennifer always let her mother know where she was, and anywhere she went, she always called her mom and checked in. When they didn't hear from her after a while, they called the state police and reported her missing. Troopers with the Kentucky State Police went out to search for the girl. They found her Mercury Cougar parked in the parking lot where Jennifer had left it. The car had been sitting there with no signs of a struggle. Her wallet and keys were exactly where she had left them. A pharmacy bag of medication that belonged to Jennifer's mother was also in the car undisturbed. A search began, and the search lasted for a week. On August the 26th, 1990, about 1.5 miles from where the car was parked, Jennifer's body was found. Several items of clothing were missing, and she appeared to have been strangled to death. The area which she'd been running was known as the Fat Track and was apparently very popular with runners. Despite a police investigation, no one has ever been held accountable for Jennifer's murder. In 2020, the Kentucky State Police launched a fresh appeal for information. Someone out there may know that, and someone out there may have information. Any information that anyone has is great. Nothing is too small. If you know anything, just please make the call, said Shane Jacobs with the Kentucky State Police. Kentucky State Police recently released never-before-known information to the public. And this was about the items of clothing that Jennifer had been wearing that day that were not found with her body. Police say they were looking for a pastel-colored jogging shorts, a white tank top. She was also listening to music on a GE small portable cassette player with earphones. She had a black and tan Velcro belt, a small yellow gold diamond chipped earrings, and a Timex watch with a brown band with imitation alligator skin. Now, all these items were missing. Was this simply a crime of an opportunity, or was Jennifer targeted? Did she just happen to come upon some random person in the park that day who... And it doesn't say if she was sexually assaulted or anything like that. It doesn't give any information like that. It just says she was strangled to death. So did this person strangle her to death simply for a cassette player and a pair of earrings and a watch? They didn't go back to her car and take her wallet or the medication that was in the car. The person that wrote this article says, I'm a little baffled as to how little information was available online about this case. There was nothing to indicate whether this was a sexual motive. Some websites that talk about this case make mention of there being little more than meets the eye to this case. However, please don't go into any information about that. Some people believe that she was targeted and that someone knew her routine and knew where she was going that day. It could have been an ex-boyfriend or a friend or someone she'd had trouble with before, or maybe another jogger who had seen her on that trail before. And without the information as to whether or not there was any kind of assault on her person other than her being strangled, I don't know if they was able to collect any kind of DNA or anything like that. So we're coming up on 35 years since this happened. As the decades run on and the trail and the case runs cold, Jennifer's mother, Janice, keeps pushing for any tip that could help find her daughter. Her mother said, "I am so hurt and so mad. Nothing's been done in this case," she says. The police have done nothing and have talked to very few people. But the detectives say that they did speak to a passerby who saw her arguing with a man next to a black pickup truck near the trailhead. 10 days later, a couple searching for arrowheads found her body a mile and a half up the road from where her car was parked. She had been thrown down a small bluff, and the medical examiner said there were signs of strangulation. The investigation into Jennifer's death outlasted its detectives. 7 or 8 have worked on this case file so far. The latest, Kentucky State Police Detective Aaron Frederick, who was born the year Jennifer went missing. When Jennifer passed away, the whole community suffered, and you could still feel the effects in Bell County, he said. Frederick hopes newly released information will bring forward tips. For Janice Bailey, the mother of Jennifer, she has spent the last 34 years wondering who killed her daughter. "It was the worst day of my life," she said. "Why in the world would anyone want to kill a young girl like that for no reason? Just the pure devil," she says. "She was my little baby girl," she said. "She went to work every morning, and she would say, 'Bye, Mom, I love you, see you at 5 o'clock. Not a day goes by that Janice doesn't wonder what happened and who killed her daughter and why." In 2020, Kentucky State Police officials released new details about Jennifer's missing items and wondering if anyone might have come upon those items. Well, at the time, at the time in 1990 when this happened, did they go out and talk to people in pawn shops? Like I said, this was way before typically people didn't have cameras in businesses, and there probably weren't any cameras out in the parking lots and stuff as there would be today. Her being thrown over a bluff for a small watch and a small pair of earrings that probably were not worth very much money. I don't think that the motive was robbery. They don't go into any detail about her personal life before this. Her mother doesn't say if she was involved with anyone, if she'd had trouble with anyone in the past. I will continue to look for more details on this case, and if I find any, I will come back and do a follow-up. If you have any details about Jennifer Bailey's case, please contact the Kentucky State Police Post 9 at 606-573-3131. When I started working on this video about Jennifer Bailey, there were some articles and videos about her, and I clicked on a video on YouTube to listen to get a little insight into her story because I couldn't find a whole lot about her background. But I want to give a shout out to a creator with the channel named Cold Case Crystal. Now, this woman lives in that area, and she did a story on this Jennifer Bailey's murder. And I made a comment on her video, and she reached right back out to me very quickly and answered a couple of questions, and I want to thank her for that. And it was rumored that the reason that Jennifer's case wasn't investigated more thoroughly was because people believed that a well-known, well-connected man who came from a prominent family was involved. And one thing that I learned about this case was that the place where Jennifer's body was located had already been searched twice. Now this came directly from one of the searchers who at that time said that they had searched that area at least 2 times already and were very shocked when they found her body there because they'd already passed through there. And the location where her body was found was not in a very well concealed, hidden area. It was like the killer had just placed her there, knowing that it was not so hidden that she would never be found. It was almost like they expected her to be found. Maybe they wanted to follow the story once she was found. The fact that her clothing and her headphones was gone tells me, made me wonder if maybe she had been taken from that area and assaulted and kept for a day or two maybe, and then brought back there. Um, Maybe longer than a day. I'm not sure how long. But now the coroner and the rescue, the man that spoke about this, did say that it was August. It was very hot. Her body had been out there to the point that it was hard to really determine any kind of assault or anything like that on her body. They said they don't think she was assaulted, but she was strangled to death, and they do believe that she was strangled to death using the cord from her headphones. And this will come up again in the next part of this story. I want people to keep that little part there in mind. Now, as far as suspects went, in the following days after Jennifer's body was recovered, they did have a couple of suspects in mind, and they interviewed a man from Lee County, Virginia, which is pretty close by. This is in the Cumberland Gap area, and it connects between Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky, and it all is just kind of like a little tri-state area there. And if you've ever visited that part of the state, then you know what I'm talking about. I've been there several times. And no charges were ever filed against this man, but there was an article in the Lexington Herald newspaper that stated that police had a suspect and that this man had been arrested previously for a similar crime. His name was never made public, but there was a composite sketch released of two different men who witnesses came forward and remembered seeing in the area around the time that Jennifer went missing. One of the men was said to be driving a silver car with rust on it, and one person believed that he and Jennifer had actually been seen talking to each other in the parking lot before she disappeared. But like I said, no arrests were ever made, and these men's names they were never released. And as the years passed, people wondered why were not the public made aware of who these men were. If someone may have known something about one of them, maybe they would have come forward with some information. And a lot of people believe that the police just wanted this to just kind of go away. But to move on, I'll just say, being that this was a small community, it shocked Bell County when a year and a half later another young woman would be found murdered in her home. She had also been strangled, and she had been strangled, bound with her own phone cord. Now, that comes from what I had mentioned earlier about Jennifer. It was believed that she had been strangled with the cord from her own headphones. And some people believe that this might have been connected, that it might have been symbolic, and to kind of give people the idea that this could have been the same person. Now, she had been bound with a phone cord and strangled, and she had been shot 5 times, twice in the back of the head. Let me move on to her story. Her name was Greta Henson. She was 24 years old, and this was a year and a half later after Jennifer's death, so she would probably have been around 22 around the time that Jennifer died. So it's possible that these two people knew each other, maybe had gone to school together. I don't know if anyone looked into that to see if there was a connection. Greta had just recently bought her own mobile home and had moved about 8 miles from her parents. And the night before her death, she had gone to her parents' home for dinner. And that night, when she returned home, she found that her home had been broken into. Now, she called her parents, and they came, and her father fixed the door. He fixed the doorknob. And this is something that I want people to remember. He fixed the door and the doorknob, and he told her to put a chair from her kitchen table underneath the front doorknob when she went to bed, and she did. Now, the gun that Greta was shot with was, I believe they said it was a .38, and the police believe that it was her own gun, and the gun had been taken. Now, the only other thing that was missing was a small jewelry box, which her parents said had no expensive jewelry. And in the previous robbery, when her home had been broken into a night before this, nothing had been taken. And Greta chose not to call the police and report this because she thought maybe it was just some local kids, or she was new to the area and had just moved in. She thought maybe it was just someone who caught her gone and came over curious, but nothing had been taken, so she didn't call the police and report this. Now, the only other thing that was said about this was that Greta had recently broken up with a boyfriend that she had dated for about 9 months. But police looked into him and his whereabouts on the night of her death, and he was not in Bell County area at the time that she was murdered, so he was quickly ruled out. Now, like I said, she had just purchased this mobile home and had moved about 8 miles away from her parents. Now, the night of her death, she had gone to her parents' home. She returned home that evening, and her parents didn't hear back from her. The next day, she was supposed to work, but her co-workers didn't find it unusual that she wasn't there when they got there that morning. Now, let me jump back a little bit. I've jumped ahead of myself. She worked as a title clerk for a local car dealership, and she had told them that she would be late that next morning because she was going to the local cable company to arrange to have her cable turned on. Now, bells went off in my head. Is it possible that this cable person followed her back to the house and said, I'll go ahead and hook you up today and get your cable turned on today? And is it possible that this person may have been the one that killed her? I don't know if anyone looked into that or not. But when she didn't show up for work, they didn't think it was unusual because she had already told them. But as the day went on and she didn't come into work, they started to wonder what was going on. Now, once again, this was in the days before people had cell phones. But later in the day, around 1 o'clock, one of her friends called her work to speak to her about some plans that they had made later that night. And her co-workers told the friend that she hadn't been heard from all day, that she hadn't shown up for work. So her friend called her mother's house to see if maybe she had come over there, and the mother said, no, we've not seen her since she left here last night, to return home. So they went to her home, and the parents found her dead. They found her bound. Her hands had been bound, and she'd been shot, like I said, 5 times, and strangled with a cord. Now, local law enforcement said that there was no sign of a break-in, but her father said that that wasn't true. Remember that her home had been broken into previously, and he had come to her home and fixed the door where it had been broken into. And he knew that the door had been damaged from since he had worked on it. He said that this was fresh damage and that this had been a break-in and that it was a forced entry. The chair that Greta had placed underneath the doorknob, that her father had advised her to place under this doorknob, was laying in the floor, broken into pieces. Whoever this was had broken in this door, and when they did, they broke the chair leg because it was holding the door shut. So whoever this was probably put a lot of force into opening this door. Now, the police also said that there was no signs or indications that she had been assaulted, otherwise sexually assaulted. she had been strangled with her phone cord. But now I'm just wondering if they did forensic exams, if they did an autopsy, if they took samples, if they took blood, uh, any scrapings or anything like that, and kept those, because this was 1992. This was before DNA was prominent, and I just wonder if they kept anything like that or not. Her parents believe she knew her killer, and like I said, a lot of people in the community, there was rumors going around that these two cases were connected, and that they were connected to someone who was well known in the community and was from a well-known connected family, and that this was one of the reasons why police just kind of let these two cases kind of just go cold. Now, some people believe that Greta's job at the car dealership may have played a role in this, that maybe she knew something that was going on and someone was afraid that she was going to talk, but they couldn't find anything. Or if they researched it and looked into it, they couldn't find anything. Now, at the time that these two murders took place, a tunnel was being built between Tennessee and Kentucky. Now, this is the Cumberland Gap Tunnel that connects Tennessee and Kentucky, and I've been through it, and I'd say a lot of you who live in this area have traveled through there. Now, it was being constructed at the time, and some people believe that it could have been members of a local construction company. These were people who were not local to the area. They had come in here to work for this construction company and were staying in the area. And some people believe that they may have been one or two of these men who just took their opportunity to find women to assault in the area. I want people to also keep something in mind about that. If that were the case, I believe that the assault would have been sexual in nature. And I believe that both of these women probably were assaulted, and that police just kind of, maybe a small town police department just didn't know what to look for, and maybe just didn't. And I don't know if their bodies were sent to Frankfurt for autopsy or anything like that. Now, there was one little rumor story online that I found that said that they believed that this person was connected to a local judge, and that was one of the reasons why everything was just kind of kept hush-hush and swept under the rug. And I couldn't find anything to say that that was true, or that who the person was. And some people believe this was just a coincidence, and others choose to believe that it was an outsider who didn't know these two young women and was just an opportunity to kill someone, to have their way with these two young women and kill them. The items that were taken from both of these women were nothing significant of value, and they believe that it could have just been a trophy to the killer. And so both of these cases still stand as cold cases, and hopefully one day, if they did take any samples from the bodies, they may be able to get a hit through CODIS or something to find out if they are related. Thanks for watching.